Well, as trade tensions between the US and China worsen, the world's biggest chip maker, Taiwan's TSMC, says it's hoping to be a stabilising influence. Global demand for semiconductors has eased since the boom that followed the COVID-19 pandemic, when chips were in short supply. But now TSMC chief C.C. Wei is optimistic the second half of the year could see a recovery. The company is also keen to expand. It's building a huge plant in the US state of Arizona and is in talks about a factory here in Germany too. Well, let's discuss this further with our correspondent in Taipei, So Han. So, how exactly does TSMC see itself as being, a potentially stabilising influence on that US-China tension that we're seeing?
Yes, Rob. First of all, let's contextualize it. TSMC said that at the shareholders meeting. They were telling their shareholders not to panic and not to listen to what politicians or military experts say. That is the response to the shareholders' concerns that TSMC's stock price is not performing as well as most technology companies. So basically, they are saying, we're doing fine. The company's decision to build the Arizona plants in the U.S. is not a coercion from the U.S. government, but a request from the U.S. customers. And that would help the growth of the semiconductor industry in Taiwan. And if Taiwan does a better job with semiconductors, the U.S. and China will also have more to consider or lose if a war really breaks out. And that has become the reason that why they think that TSMC it has the stabilizing role in geopolitical tensions.
You mentioned potential for war there. There is this concern that China might invade or blockade Taiwan. How is TSMC responding to that concern?
Well, they have stated clearly that if China were to attack Taiwan, the impact of wafer manufacturing would not be the most important problem for Taiwan because the entire world order would change. They also said nobody can control TSMC by force because if you do so, you cannot keep it running for long. The supply chain of the materials and equipment required by TSMC to manufacture wafers comes from the US, Japan, Europe, etc. It's useless to just have the wafer fabs and equipment. So China will not be able to get the high-end wafers and the Chinese economy will be in chaos. So if China snatches TSMC, China will not have access to high-end chips, as we just talked about, and the economy will be in disarray.
You mentioned about plans for a plant in Arizona. TSMC is also in talks with authorities here in Germany about a potential plant here as well in Dresden. What's behind that strategy from TSMC of branching out into the States and here in Europe?
Well, this strategy is to develop an international business model to maintain its leading position in the world in the next 10 to 20 years. And they have to meet the requirement for customers in different places. One of the reasons why TSMC decided to set up plants in the US or maybe in Germany in the future is because that many of the chips were used in defense and infrastructure and AI applications. And the customers in these countries want to have local production options. And not just the US and Germany, TSMC also confirmed just yesterday that they will evaluate the establishment of a second fab in Japan, which will not focus on smaller chip size for better computing power, but special processes for the niche market. So really, it's because of different markets that have to have different international strategies.
Yeah, there's a lot of keenness in the US and Europe to have their own local chip supplies, isn't there? Well, So Han in Taipei for us. Thank you very much for the update.